Welcome to the Upholstery Show, live from Arlington, Massachusetts. We're going to serve you up a beautiful bowl of coconut fiber. Really? Jimmy.
That never gets old.
Is it on?
Yeah.
Jimmy should get an Academy Award for his appearance in that introduction.
That's two appearances in a nationwide.
That's the second time Jimmy's been exposed nationwide, maybe even worldwide. He was in a movie called
The Town.
The Town. Jimmy.
My
In the background postering is,
award-winning 10-second video.
We know because we get royalty demands from his agent in Singapore. Where's your agent station? Somewhere.
He's one of those 800 numbers. I don't know which one. They call every so often. I think he sounds like the guy from the IRS.
Every word is $1 from you, so be quiet now.
Oh, I'm sorry. Really? One whole dollar?
We got to have you up here in a little while, Jimmy. We're going to take care of some business.
The pressure is on now.
And we're going to take care of some business now. Welcome to another question and answer. It's been I can't believe the weeks go by so fast. I think next week we're going to take a little bit of a break.
We have to apologize for this week as well. We've been so busy we haven't been able to upload a video.
We have been a little bit, we're doing all kinds of other stuff right now, but that doesn't mean we're not going to go back to it big way, Patrick. We're going to really need to focus here for our YouTube
we'll have
people.
multiple videos up.
Yeah, I mean, we don't want to let our YouTube fans down because we know that they're by their computer waiting for that new notification to come that we've done something new. So stay tuned on that. What other news do we have, Patrick? The
reason why we're cleaning out our basement that hasn't been cleaned out in 10 years.
Right, but we're getting ready to do more cushions. The cushion orders are coming in, so you guys take a look at our. We changed the name of our website, Upholstery Supply, Broadway Upholstery Supply instead of school, but you can still find us both ways.
Right. And the school's still up there. It's just a separate little area. It's got its own area now.
And I did want to, before we get started, I was looking at one of my books that I have, The Complete Upholsterer. There's not many upholstery books out there. I did one, I think, a very basic book. This book that I have here, I would say, is for the advanced upholsterer. I mean, there's a lot of techniques in here that that even I looking at, I'm looking at it saying it's just different. It's a different way of doing things than I do. I think what I've done with the YouTube channel and also the online classes is I do it with what's called fixed upholstery. A lot of the stuff that I see in here is upholstery that they do. The Europeans did this off the chair and then they apply the whole thing to the chair. That's not what we do. We fix the upholstery. It's a little different techniques. But I think I have a good product with the stool, right, Patrick? The basics, fundamentals of upholstery, which has its own book and its own video. The advantage we have today is that we have the video. I mean, there's nothing like the video. I mean, the next best thing to the video is in person. And right now, we haven't done in person since March, I think, or even February. Mm-hmm. So we do miss that. It's one of the delights of the shop. With many of the other things that we're doing, was teaching in person, and unfortunately we haven't been able to do that. So hopefully this will all change, and we'll get right back to that. We used to have 12 people at a time. Oh, by the way, this is a live question and answer, so you guys feel free to ask questions at any time. And I think what I'm going to do is get to some of the questions and comments that we've had this week. It's been a little slow week, like we said. But Denise has a good question here. She said, I watched the question and answer episode with Jimmy's client's chair with trim and decorative nails. You spoke about spacing the nails every other or every two. How is that done without an odd space at the end? That's a good question. You just have to plan for it. So if you're coming, say you're putting your tacks, this is the end, you're putting your tacks, I would advise you to put this tack in at about this point. If you're doing, no matter what you're doing, every other tack, every other two tacks, or every tack next to one another. When you get to right about here, you can put your tack in. It's very important to get the full tack in the corner. This is the little secret, you guys. Can you just get up on that? right in this area here. Let me just do this. I just happen to have the decorative tacks handy.
You carry them with you everywhere you go, right, Kevin?
And look at this, Jimmy. Would you use a silver tack on this?
You know what, my client is looking at the type of tack they used last time, so I believe it was the brown one.
So let's say you're carrying your silver tacks right to this point, right? And you've got it the spacing right next to one another, or every other one, or every other two. So let's say, just for the sake of argument, you've got it spaced right next to one another, which takes a lot of tacks, right? So maybe about at this point you come over here and you get this tack. Make sure you get the one in the corner, that's important. So then as you're getting close, sometimes you get lucky and you're like right here. And this tack's gonna work out pretty good. Look. But let's say you're not lucky and you're coming in and you realize that you're gonna have a space there, right? So that's why you want to start planning it out a little bit, right? You got like a half a tack, that's a half a head of a tack. So when you're right about here, what you want to do is start spreading them out a little, instead of having them right on top of one another, just start spreading them out just a fraction of an inch, so that by the time you get over here, you'll be right close, right? Does that make sense? So plan it out. This is what you don't want to do. This is what Denise is talking about. You don't want to be just taking the chance. You're right here and just go right along, and then you get here and you realize that you're a half of a tack. You have a half of a head of a tack. Now let's say you have a 3/4 of a tack that you could do. What you could do, and if you're really stuck, you could take and hammer your dome down from the side. And hammer the dome down. Sometimes you can hammer the dome down to 1/3 the size. You could take 1/3 of the head off and then get it on. But you'd much rather see the fullness of the head of the tack right in this area. And the only way to do that is to plan for it and space your tacks out. Space them out. So I hope that answers your question, Denise. Tack work, as Jimmy knows, Jimmy has a question.
Well, so basically you're saying tack the corners of the piece of furniture?
No, let's say you're working from the right to the left and you're going along here nicely.
Okay.
I get to about this point and then I put my tack over here.
Okay.
And then I kind of scope it out to see. I don't measure it, I just eyeball it.
Okay.
Just to see. And as I'm getting closer, as you get closer, let's say you're 3 or 4 tacks away, and you know that you have to make it up by spreading the tacks. It's still not too late. You can spread the tacks in order to meet that tack with the full head.
Okay.
Does that make sense? The full tack head. You don't really want my idea of hitting the tack down. You want that as a last resort.
Okay.
When you want to take the dome out.
Okay.
It's a good question. She's
got this particular piece is gonna take a good 200 tacks.
And you're putting the tacks in?
Yes.
And are you putting them right head to head?
There's gonna be a little bit of a space between them.
You're doing every other one? So
Yeah.
that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. It's a lot more. 10, 20, 40, 50, 60, 70, 80, 90, 100. I think you're looking at probably maybe 500 tacks, Jimmy?
500,
Because remember, you got
I
the
know
outside.
where my weekend's gonna be then.
And the box contains 1,000.
I'll put that on my order.
So
for
you're
the,
all set.
Broadway Supply.
Yeah. Now, do you have much luck with puzzles? Like, when you're doing a puzzle, do you find that you're missing a piece at the end and it drives you crazy, or you put a piece in the wrong way? Because I'll tell you why. This is a funny thing. Not so much on the silver tacks, but on the French natural tacks, they come in different dye lots.
What?
They come in different dye lots. Those tacks. They vary in color from box to box.
Are you kidding?
So you want to make sure that you start with a full box.
Okay.
It's interesting, isn't it? So if you have like a few tacks in one box and then start another box, open it, you might find that you have a different dye lot. Isn't that interesting?
Thank you for that tip.
That's a little tidbit, right. So let's get to some of the comments here with the classes. We don't have many, but so I want to show you how to repurpose some materials today that might be interesting for some people. But Laverne, first we have a question from Zoom classes starting soon. Laverne, she just made a comment about a good teacher doesn't rush, so that's good. I think that Jimmy, would you agree with that? We don't rush through things, we try not to?
No, I think
Classes.
even someone like yourself who's been around 40 years, and somebody like myself who's been around 6 or 7, you have the knowledge, but you still have to kind of know what your mission is to get that piece done, or to get the pillow stuffed, or whatever it is.
But we try to teach in a methodical way, and the approach that I have is that everybody's a beginner. I guess that's probably the way to look at it. Janine says, on the 18th century English Victorian chair, she said, this is the one I think we featured. Oh no, I'm not sure which one this is, Patrick. Oh, this is the one that...
Just did recently.
Yeah, and I think Janine's agreeing with me that they're English chairs. That's good to know. That she's in agreement on that, because she knows this stuff. We got another comment just saying that they liked it. And they also think Victorian 19th century. Yeah. I think that the chairs the story is the chairs came over from France, that's what the customer said, to their family in the 1850s. So my guess is they might have been, I bet that they probably had about 25 years on them. So I think this is right. I think that early 19th century, I think that's what I would put them at. And then Kevin says, I can't believe it was kept in the family for all those years and they just got rid of them. Hopefully they will go to people who appreciate them next. Yes, I agree, Kevin. And also maybe have a place to put them. I mean, these chairs you have to really handle with care. I think that you can't lean back on them. They need to be just put somewhere almost just to look at and occasionally use as occasional chairs at the most because they are fragile. Then Janine says on the diamond chair, she's purchased. Oh, she's a yearly subscriber, right, Patrick? Mm-hmm. So Janine is commenting on the diamond chair, lesson 6, fixed toughening. We're talking about fixed how we fix the pieces of upholstery to the frame. Whereas if you're watching that, Janine, sometimes they'll upholster that whole thing off the chair. They'll tough that off the chair and then apply it, which I think is a little risky. So she says, a great class. I'm intrigued to see how the back closes up. But before that, how do you finish each button at the back so it's at the same depth as the others? So I think, I'm not sure, I'm trying to remember where we're at with lesson 6. If we haven't shown, I think in lesson 7, we're showing you how to do that. So when you put your slip knot through, and then you slip knot each one, you don't tie it off. And then one person stands in front and tells the other person what button needs to be tighter to match the other ones. So really, unless you can contort your body, if you're by yourself, you can't do this on a sofa. You need a helper on this one. I think it's always good on this one to have a helper, to have somebody on the front telling you how much to pull that twine, because once you tie it off, that's it, and then you have to undo it if it's not as tight as the other ones. Do you know what I mean? So it's a good question by Janine. Janine always has good questions. And then last week on the Upholstery Show Live, Janine says, more great info on spring tying. If the inside edge of the timber frame, we were just talking about this, Jimmy. Mm-hmm. If the inside edge of the timber frame is very sharp, can you round it slightly so it's less likely to cut the spring tying twine over the decades? So what Janine is talking about, if you feel this edge has been trimmed down or maybe taken a file to, but this edge hasn't. So she's talking, I say, if you got the time and you want to take the time to do that, that's fine. And also do the tying that we show you how to do that. We're going to show you a little bit more about this in a minute, but do we have any questions?
One from Sylvia.
Hi, Sylvia.
Hello, I did my first attached pillow cushions this week. Question about your teachings for doing this, or your question about your technique for doing this.
She's questioning, what is the question?
First attached pillow cushion.
I think she's asking how to sew it.
She says, hello, I did my first attached pillow cushion this week. Question about your technique for doing this.
So, it's called a semi-attached cushion. And I have to tell you, semi-attached cushions are usually they're difficult, I would say, because they never seem to square up the way you want it. So to test what I mean is, as the hardest ones to do are semi-attached ottomans. And why are they hard? Because first of all, they're down on the floor, they're flat, right? And all four sides are exposed. So you need to make sure that your sewing is pretty accurate in order to square the cushion up. So all you need to do is ask a refinisher about tabletops. Tabletops are the hardest things to refinish because they'll fall this way, right? A chair, everything else, bookcases and everything else are up like this. So they're a little harder. You see everything, in other words. If something's flat and the lighting is always a little goofy, it really reveals a lot, the lighting, let's say that. It's the same thing on semi-attached ottomans, so it's laying flat. So it really tests your skill. But what she did is a back. It's a little bit easier on a back because you've got two arms where it might be contained. It's contained to the other cushion that you might have three on the back, I'm not sure. But the way I do it is, if it's a three back, semi-attached sofa, let's say, I'll cut the fabric. I like using a whole piece of fabric, goods, and I cut it to fit the inside back first. And then what I do is I draw with chalk lines. Some people use pencil because I don't like using pencil because I think you might see it. I use chalk, the chalk that you can wipe clean. Make sure it's a thin chalk line where I want my seam to be, right? And then what happens is all my cover, my back side of the cushion is stitched. It's face to face. Is stitched to those lines, and I on the back side of the fabric on the cushion, I have another line that's pencil because that's the back side of the fabric, right? Do you follow this? It's hard for me to without showing sometimes, and then the rest of the cushion gets made around it. I mean, some people like to put the piping on first on the cushion if you haven't piping. Does that make sense? I think if she's done it, she knows what I'm talking about. She may have done it the same way I did it, which is fine. That's how I do it anyhow. Is there another question? Or
No.
No follow-up? If she has a follow-up, she can ask a follow-up to that. But I just want to take a drink here. Non-alcoholic. Jimmy just looked at me like, really? Where did he get that?
Did I say that?
He said it the same way, too.
So I want to show you, I always have a problem finding, scraps. I know you guys are in an upholstery shop, you have a lot of scraps laying around. So I don't like to throw fresh things away, fresh scraps. There's fresh scraps of bonded Dacron in this bag here. So I had a customer come in. I just want to show you what he brought me first. He brought me one cushion, one lumbar cushion. So I'm looking for his tag. This one has a tag on it from the manufacturer. So this is the manufacturer's cushion. And he said, here, make 3 more of them, exactly the same. So I said, okay. So I have to duplicate what the manufacturer did, and he's got an all Dacron cushion there, but it's a little firmer than some of the Dacron that you see, the loose Dacron that you see in throw pillows, because this is technically a lumbar pillow, so it needs to be a little firmer in order, people are going to be putting their elbow on it, so that's the idea. So here's the manufacturer's cushion, and I want to show you the one I did. And I have to say, I was a little impressed by how I did this. I'm going to show you how I did this, but when I went to pick this up to see which is the manufacturer's pillow, I actually had to look at that tag to make sure that I had the right one, because it's so close. I think you guys will agree. Do you think I did a pretty good job there?
Not bad for a beginner.
What do you think, Jimmy? So now I want to show you how I did that. Okay, first of all, I needed to do a little investigation. I needed to find out, I'm gonna put this one over here for now. I needed to find out, I opened the zipper obviously, and I just wanted to check it out. I don't need this liner, so I'll show you what else I did to duplicate that, but anyhow. So I felt it, and I felt, okay, there's Dacron in there, but it's not the Dacron used. It's a little thicker, so close this up. I don't need to close it up now, but what I did was I took my bonded Dacron and I have a number 77 glue, so what I did was, I'm just going to trim this up just a little bit on this side. I measured around the bolster to get what this is, this measurement here, right? And then I'm going to take my spray glue so the cushion that I'm making is not it's not a down cushion that needs a muslin casing. It's not what I would call a high-end cushion, but I need to duplicate what's there, so this is how I'm doing it. So I'm going to glue this down. I'm going to leave the bottom open. Now if you want, you could take a little bit more glue on the sides maybe, just the ends here. Now, I always have a problem with the bonded Dacron, what to do with the bonded Dacron. I realized that I might have been throwing some of this stuff away because I had no use for it, especially the smalls. And I don't know why I did that, because I take a little time. Just want to show you. Yeah, the bonded Dacron, I use a very thin bonded Dacron. It's about an inch wide. So if you take it and pull it, you can get it half the width. So I should tell you that with the bonded Dacron is actually, it's just like the loose Dacron. And the difference is though, it's sprayed glue so that it holds together. So that makes it a little firmer than I would have liked for this. So what I did was I split the layer, and then you can actually pick it almost like, I don't know if you've seen me pick horsehair. It's the same thing. You're picking this, and what you're doing is you're softening the Dacron up a little bit, and then you could put it in like into your cover here, a handful at a time. It gives you a lot of control when you do that. So instead of, using the bonded Dacron like, just pulling it and just stuffing it with the whole layer, you can actually get it softer, and you need to get it, you can't put the bonded Dacron inside here like that with like the layer that it comes off of, because it's a little too bulky and you're going to feel it. So I noticed that when I did this, it's got a really good feel to it. It's doing what I wanted to do. It's duplicating the manufacturers. So I just pick it a little bit loose, and a handful at a time. So some projects come to you that are different, and that you need to kind of adjust. You need to problem solve. This was I just solved a problem, and also I have a great use. So the next time one of my apprentices doesn't have anything to do, I'm going to have them pick Dacron and put it in another bag saying with pick Dacron, which I can use for, actually speaking of semi-attached backs, you can use them for semi-attached backs or throw pillows. So I found a great use for my bonded Dacron. Why didn't I think of that before, you guys? I bet you guys are saying, well, I do that. I do that. I've been doing that for 20 years. Oh, I don't think of everything. So, and then I fill, what I do is I fill one handful at a time across in one row, and then handful at a time another row, and then another row, and then another row. And I end up with my bolster, and it looks pretty good. I want to show you another problem that I had that came in. Speaking of cushions. So I have to make a custom cushion for this. So this is brand new. This came from a manufacturer as a down cushion, and the people realized that they were allergic to down. So I need to make a foam cushion out of this, but it's a funny looking cushion. I want to show you. It's wedged. It's got a funny wedge. The seam's in the middle, and it goes like that. So I'm going to devise a foam cushion in Dacron. I'm going to custom make this to fit this cushion. I haven't really thought it out yet, but I'll think of something. And the thing is, the key is the spray glue, and having different size foams. Now you can get bolsters, but not this shape. I don't think I can get a bolster this shape. This was a custom to the manufacturer. But I'll make this. So we have another question.
This is from Anil.
Hey, Anil.
What kind of combination of fabric lasts longer and with great comfort at budget price?
Well, over in this, we have what we call manufacturer's fabric. Manufacturer's fabric is what you see mostly in some lower end, furniture stores. And you're not going to believe this, you guys, but the cost of them to manufacture this fabric, they have what they call, what do they call it, a pattern, where they have the basic backside of the fabric. It's usually rubber. It's rubberized. And then they on top of that, they can build almost any type of fabric or look, color and look, and weave, well, not weave really, but a pattern. Believe it or not, they've got this down such to a science that they can manufacture fabric for $5 to $10 a yard.
Wow.
So that's really cheap. Let's say $5 a yard. And here's the thing in the industry, in the manufacturing industry. They don't want to sell you fabric by itself. They're going to put it on their pieces and sell you the whole piece. If you go in there to say, hey, I need some more fabric for a side chair that I want, yes, they'll sell it to you, but the markup is probably about 400%. Keep that in mind. So they could be charging you $80, $90, or $120 a yard for a fabric that costs $5 a yard to produce. So getting back to Anil's question, so this fabric that I'm talking about, which is a basic upholstery fabric, you're probably going to get tops. It's probably got a double rub about 10 to 15,000 on it. You're probably going to get about, and this is interesting, it's going to last hopefully as long as the frame of the piece is in that quality. So you're looking at maybe 10 years, 8 to 10 years if you're lucky, before you start seeing seams ripping and cushions breaking and all that. So you want a really good fabric. You're looking at more of a design fabric. You're going to get a better quality fabric, and you're going to get a fabric that has more identifying features about it. It's going to tell you not only double rub, it's going to tell you UV, ultraviolet, tests that they do, and also what is the content of the fiber, and also don't look for fabric that, you're going to get a very inexpensive fabric that has a base, that has a backing to it. Those are the inexpensive fabrics, okay? Look for wovens. So woven is and look for heavy woven. I mean, thread counts are very important. A bad example of a fabric would be like a Haitian cotton, which has a very low thread count. As a matter of fact, when you hold it up to the light, you can actually see through it. And that's another test when you're out there looking at fabrics, you guys. Hold it up to the light and look at it. Thickness doesn't always tell the story. A Haitian cotton is very thick, yet it has a very low thread count. When you hold it up to the light, you can see that. So there's a lot of common sense associated with fabrics to use, certainly. Look for wovens, look for upholstery weight fabric. Some fabrics will say for use in drapery, don't use that. But I hope that answers Anil's questions, or some of them, because he's got a lot of them. We have another follow-up question or another question?
Somebody says, or named LV, says, I've never used any fabrics under 30,000 double rubs. Most hotels require that at minimum.
So he's doing commercial work, and he's right not to use. I think in residential, it depends on the clients. I mean, I have some clients who fall in love with the fabric who are living alone and they don't have any animals, and they want to use let's say they want to use a silk or a taffeta or something, that's fine for them. But as long as you're upfront with the client, tell them, some people will go for the below 30,000 in residential, but in commercial, yeah, you have to maintain certain standards in commercial, and a lot of them come to you with what the standards are, so you have to abide by those if you're showing them fabrics. So it's a good question. So we have another question.
This one's from Allie Unique.
Hi, Allie.
What's the best manufacturer for cotton velvet?
Cotton velvet. I'll be honest, I only deal with one fabric company. I think what's more important is to have a relationship with the fabric company. Have that relationship and build that relationship. If you're dealing with an upholstery company, no matter who they are, I think that you're going to be able to find a line of velvets of different qualities from that manufacturer. I think you could get lost in the world of fabrics very easily because there's so many choices. Cotton velvet is not too many ways to mess up a cotton velvet, I don't think. So keep that in mind. So I hope that answers your question. You, in other words, lean on your manufacturer for the details of what they're providing you, and even country of origin. A good manufacturer will have all that lists. So I don't like to mention manufacturers' names. I try not to, but build a relationship with a good manufacturer. Good manufacturers will have all the identification for each fabric that they're presenting to you, including country of origin. So this is important. It all adds up to knowing what you're using on your pieces, right? So do we have any other questions? We're going to have Jimmy come up. Jimmy is going to have his sweatshirt on that he is prepared.
We caught him.
I didn't think I would be called at this moment, but thank you for announcing me.
Come on up, Jimmy, because I want to talk about
I still
your
haven't
piece.
had you sign this. I think it'd be...
Well, only if infamy has anything to do with it.
No.
Okay, so I'm going to remove some of this stuff just to talk to you a little bit about this. So we're really well underway in your class.
We had a question before that, kind of.
You can ask questions while
It's about the
talking.
8-way tie.
What's that?
Oh.
It says, do you find that the 8-way tie has lost its popularity? I see everybody wanting basic nose sag or just strong weather.
I do, and it's a shame. Who's this,
It's
Patrick?
LV again.
Yeah, I do. I had one upholsterer say we were presenting an antique. It was an antique Victorian, I think. And, there's no doubt about it. Jimmy can vouch for this. It's tough work. It's hard work. But when it's done, it's beautiful. But one of the upholsterers, he got so frustrated, he left a comment saying, "Oh, just cut the springs out, put the polyurethane in and be done with it."
Well, yes, that's true. I mean, but, again,
that's, I don't know.
this is a sofa, and much like
Settee.
a settee or a sofa, whatever size and whatever amount of springs you happen to have, it's a matter of trying to get. I mean, I've gotten this down. I haven't done a spring anything in a few years. So being out of the loop with the technique and a little bit of the speed, I was a little bit behind. I was a little intimidated
It's
first.
fine though. I mean, you're a beginner. You're still in the beginner stage. I mean, you do get quick at this, and there's ways not to cut corners, but there's ways to speed up, and it usually comes with experience. But I have to tell you, Jimmy, when upholstery first started, it was everything was fixed. There were no loose cushions, and they had strapping. It didn't look like this. But they had this small strapping on the tops of frames. And then they built nice, what they call cakes, which we still do.
Okay.
Of edge roll and horsehair and a lot of hand stitching in there. And then they put it on, and then they put the cotton over that, and they're done. And very simple upholstered side chairs and things like that.
Right.
As we move along here, the introduction of loose cushions and bigger pieces and more round. People want more plush or round looking. Then springs came into being, and I would say springs have been around for almost 150, maybe 175 years or so.
Yes.
And that's when the seat became its best. So you got your spring, your 8-way tie attached to jute webbing and burlap over that, and then a whole assortment of different battings over that. And who was this that asked the question, Patrick?
LV.
LV. I have to say that they have not been able to improve it. We're stalled in this time period as to the best seat possible, really. It is the best
What
seating
distance right here?
possible. Right, this is what you're doing, Jimmy. So they've gone to zigzag springs, they've gone to drop-in units, they've gone to rubber webbing. Forget about rubber webbing, that's an awful way of
What is that like?
well, it doesn't last. So remember what you're doing with seats in particular.
Okay.
Seats get all the weight of a human being.
Yes.
And as more time goes on, in this settee, the average person was 5 foot, maybe 4, 5'5", and about 150 pounds,
Yes.
right?
And what are we today?
Now we're a little bit heftier than that, but
Yes.
but this has stood up to the test of time.
Yes.
Even with that. So all of the weight is on a particular piece of furniture is right in the seat. Let's just bring this up to the camera now and take a look at what Jimmy's doing. Jimmy's going to look like Charlotte's Web when he's done with this. It's going to look like Charlotte's Web.
Thank you for that. I don't know if that's a compliment or not.
He's got his 4-way tie, and then next week he's going to have a lot of fun next week filling in these little holes with the 8-way tie. But that's really important, isn't
Now,
it?
give them an example of what you're talking about when you say an 8-way tie, how it's going to look.
Eventually, so we have now 4 points tied off. 1, 2, 3, 4, right?
Right.
By the time you're done, you're going to be angling this. You're going to be like splitting the pie up. It's like taking a pie even, right?
So
Even
from this
space.
side to here,
So let's focus in on this one. You're going to have
Okay.
a twine come all the way from there.
Okay.
That's 6.
right?
And then you're going to have a twine this way, and you've just done this spring, this one spring with the 8.
Okay.
And then you need to fill in from there.
So everything is crossed.
Everything's crossed, and then these ones over here, the ones on the end,
Yeah.
they get a little twine. They get one twine this way, and then a little twine this way. So you're always thinking about being even. That's how you figure it out
Okay.
as you're going along.
Okay.
The more you put in, the more it makes sense. But by the time you're done, you're going to have twines crossing here and here and here. The reason that's important is for support.
Right.
And what you're looking at is to try to, in any seat, whether you're using zigzag springs, it's funny on rubber webbing or anything like that, you're looking for weight distribution, proper weight to try to, take the pressure off any one part of the seat is what
Right,
you're
when
doing.
people sit, they're
Yeah.
covering the whole seat.
So with zigzag springs, what they try to do to try to make improvements on it, that zigzag spring here, here's how easy it is, a zigzag spring. You got 2 clips here, clip here, spread the spring, another couple of nails here and a clip here, and that's it.
Okay.
And then they put, 12 of them across here. But then what they've tried to do with them, because they realize there's a problem with this going on, right? Because it's not even distribution. So they try to get these little springs in between. They
Right,
added
to
that.
balance it.
And then some people have, taken twine and gone between there, some manufacturers, because they realize, that's not the greatest thing. And then they come up with what they call, okay, we'll keep the coil springs, but we'll attach them to a metal frame on the bottom.
Oh, I had that.
Yeah, and some of them are okay, but what happens over time is they tend to bottom out more. Okay, they tend to bottom out. That little wire, that little metal piece on the bottom that's holding the springs gets a lot of weight on it. So they tend to bend this way and they tend to bottom out. Here's the unique thing about the webbing. Let's just show people the bottom of the piece. The unique thing about webbing, and this is really important for you guys to remember, is that it has a very unique feature that allows the webbing over time to sag a little bit. So if you go into somebody's house and you see that the bottom of the antique piece has sagged a little bit, that's actually a good thing, because what it's doing is it's taking the pressure from the top of the springs, bringing it to the bottom in a very gentle way. Otherwise, if it was nylon, even switching the webbing to a nylon webbing, it's too good. it doesn't allow the springs over time to sag a little bit. So what happens, we'll bring this back up. What happens is the top of the spring gets a lot of the abuse, and then you start having twines breaking and the springs tilting and everything. So the bottom line, you guys, I've not seen a seat that matches an 8-way tie, and that nowhere. So next week, Jimmy's going to be doing the 8-way tie, and then we're going to talk about, and then we're going to put the burlap on, and then we're going to put an edge roll in the front, and then we're going to start talking about batting for him. So because Jimmy has a loose cushion on this, he's not going to put a lot of batting on this, okay? Because the loose cushion is the 4 inches. The loose cushion is the batting, most of the batting, right? So if you had an upholstered seat on this, what do you think?
So would it be
I'll ask you,
rubberized
Jimmy.
horsehair?
Yes, perhaps, yeah.
Perhaps.
Yeah.
What's the other alternative?
I have to get an idea after the burlap on how high this is going to be in order to put. Why don't you grab your cushion for a second? So even now, this is sitting pretty good.
Yeah,
gonna
and
be a
you'll have
little
the, I mean,
bottom.
we'll have stuffing in the back, I mean,
Yeah.
padding.
But it's going to have an edge roll. Let's take the edge roll down. I know we showed this last week, but this is kind of interesting. I think this is interesting, right?
Well, I'll have a better idea of how this is all gonna kind of fall into place. Now this is how
How about
big?
you grab that? That's the big one. That's what you're going to be using.
This is what, inch?
Yeah, let's just. You could tell I wasn't prepared for this at all.
Well, ad-libbing is good.
So your springs are going to come down a little bit with the burlap. We're going to try to flatten these in the 8-way tie.
Yes, we'll do that.
Because it
even
has to
more.
be a little flatter. So it's going to come out like that. And then what we're going to do, after we get this on, this will be burlap, we're going to draw a line about 6 inches back from the front edge, which is going to differentiate the decking from the seat, okay? So that's important. You have a decking and a seat, two components of the seat.
Okay.
A seat and a deck. And a seam, we're going to cut our fabric and we're going to seam it, and then we're going to stitch that down.
Okay.
So the purpose of that exercise is so that the front is bigger, is higher than
So
the
the
deck.
cushion doesn't come off.
Exactly.
Now that's
Exactly.
true for all the types of chairs, so you actually have a more
If it's properly done, yes. But
Okay.
what I see today is the manufacturers, I hate to keep picking on manufacturers, but I got two pieces in here right now where the seat and the deck are even. So they kind of get away from the whole traditional aspects of upholstering, you
so
know.
they're trying to save money on
They
the padding?
forget. No, they just don't know. They forget. Over time, you know, so certain things fall by the wayside, and this is one of them. So by
This
the
would be
time
good.
you're done, this cushion will be sitting at a little bit of an angle. You won't even notice it on a down cushion, but it's
Okay.
there.
Question.
And we have another question.
Good.
This is from Dennis.
Hi, Dennis.
Do you tie the springs the same way on the back of a sofa as the seat?
On this one, yes. On some that have a wire edge seat, no. The front of the wire edge gets tied differently.
How so?
Well, the wire is let's see if I can talk about this a little bit. So on Jimmy's seat, his was different because his springs were small, first of all, because he's having a cushion. So I was about to say, if you were going to have this upholstered, you'd have bigger springs and they'd be coming out round already like this, a higher seat, if you didn't have a cushion.
Okay.
We would use this is a number 1 spring, I think. We would use a number 4 spring on this to get the balloon look, right?
Okay.
To get the crown look, I should say. So this question here that we had, there is a difference. If this was a wire edge seat, I don't know if you can imagine this, but the springs would be a little bit up here, and you'd have a wire across the front here, and the tie, I can't really show it, but the tying on a wire edge seat on the front is much different than what Jimmy's done. Let's just put it that way, okay? So it's a good question. You guys are really observant, but I'm excited
They're too
about
good,
Jimmy's
Kevin.
product.
Too good.
Oh,
That's
yeah,
the
they are. They really test me, right? So, do we have any other questions? No? I think
Anil says he meant the combination of fabric. That's what he meant.
combination.
Yeah, combination.
You mean,
He's cotton and synthetic.
Oh, okay, I'll answer that. No, I usually like to go to a 50-50 mix, like 50% cotton, 50% synthetic.
Okay.
That seems to be a nice mix.
Mm-hmm.
For me, it gives you the right stretch and everything else, and also usually 100% anything is usually a little bit more.
Yes.
Like 100% cottons are usually a little bit more, so it keeps the cost down too. So, but these are questions that are that have a long. Didn't we do a video, Patrick, on
Yes,
fabrics?
And they'll make sure to check out that video. It's about fabric types.
Yeah, we get more into it. I think I talk about. I read. I think the backs of the fabrics that go over a little bit about.
You went through all the books, I remember.
Yeah, yeah. So I think that's, unless we have another question, I think that's going to do it for today, right, Patrick?
Yeah.
I want to thank our special guest, Jimmy.
A special guest. I still
Special
haven't got
guest.
paid from the first time. Come on.
And we'll see you next time. Thanks for tuning in.
Everyone in the U.S., have a good Thanksgiving. We'll see you next week. Right, Dad?
Yes.
We'll be back the following week. Bye, guys.
Wow. Time off. What are you guys gonna do? Who's cooking the dinner?